This is a composite of a couple of essays, some humorous, some not humorous, although there's humor in much politics today, with political philosophy and social design being the way it is. Social governance of a democratic constitution rises through design rather than evolution. Tribal environments may evolve strongmen, feudal nobles, or even dictators and hereditary monarchs, yet creation of social and legal egalitarianism require political philosophical reason to innovate and continue a national zeitgeist, reinforcing a productive and coherent free enterprising individualism concatenated. Plato and Aristotle recognized the malleability of political constructions comprising a nation or city-state. Plato illustrated the design of a republic abstracted from the Spartan city-state idealized as neo-fascism. The support of Socrates for the restoration of oligarchy led to Demos to order his execution for corrupting youth. Plato, his student and associate, wrote of an ideal republic. Aristotle developed the idea of historical cycles and forms of government in his book Politics. That idea had continued through 20th century philosophers of history such as Oswald Spengler and Arnold Toynbee. The design of optimal political structures insinuated into the necessarily evolving state of political arrangements as they are is challenging. Social government has an ideal constitution in some regards that is separate from the actual facts of social reality. Social reality finds its own Taoist flow through the watercourses of history, with social members often in opposition to or incognizant of the requirements of readjusting courses and evaluation of governance for the aircraft of state to maintain a productive course through time. The United States polity can regard its political prospects as requiring adjustment through legislation capable of renormalizing the egalitarian and equal opportunity prospects of its citizens. The nation requires secure borders, a stable population, a healthy environment, and freedom from extreme political outsourcing of power and wealth. Taxation may be changed as needed to reduce the inimical concentration of wealth and power through global networks, to restore the national ecospheric health, and to transition into a more efficient national economic system with greater productivity from fewer resources. There is no good reason to believe that the national interest is best advanced by concentrating wealth within a loosely evolutionary rationale of feudalism, organized crime, aesthetic feudalism, or pseudo-theocratic hierarchicalization. Free enterprise for Adam Smith and David Hume would have been a better way to free society from concentrated wealth and power rather than to reinforce it. Designing governance today that brings into effect the most efficient American national economy possible is a process like that taken by Plato or the founders of the United States. Design of political course corrections that will enable the most Americans possible to save capital and to creatively invest it in their own free enterprise without the presence of pervasive wealth network snares and co-option of opportunity is a challenging task. The fundamental goals and parameters for change to fulfill national political goals are not so difficult to express. Intermediate-sized corporations ought to be the largest allowed. 10,000 employees should be the limit for corporate growth. Quality instead of quantity should be the basic way to advance. Taxation on those earning more than $250,000 annually should be at 70%, and on the middle class just 20%, and 1% for the poor. With more capital concentration for the poor and middle class, and with fewer preemptory financial networks, the growth of new free enterprises and acceleration of quality and competition should increase. The United States today has a totalized economy from which no one is exempt. It assumes the course of development toward concentration of wealth through neglect and corruption. Cheap labor from Mexico may be imported to keep wages down. Supply and demand works in the labor market, too. To return the economy to ecospheric and economic efficiency will require intention and design. No citizen should own shares of stock in more than 3 corporations. When the federal debt is repaid, excess federal income can be invested in ecospheric rehabilitation, education, space exploration, and technological prize incentives, competitions. Full employment should be a normal goal of American political design, along with comprehension of function, social safety net. Citizens should have lifetime medical care and no problem for basics like shelter and food, privacy and communications, in order that they might be free to be as inventive and productive as possible without lengthy years of downtime, when only the rich concentrating wealth and the upper middle class mirthfully enjoy comfort and the increase of political power. As a nation, the USA can set basic political goals and continuously strive, like an ancient Sparta of Athens, to actualize the ideal state of well-being of all citizens. This does not mean that government should create a philosophical utopia along hedonist or utilitarian lines. It simply requires that the nation forego the attractions of anarchy, neglect, and feudalism or tyranny, and rationally implement legislation to renormalize the functions of government to reinforce the best systems analysis mechanistic functions it can. USA is like a plane in flight that requires political pilots to maintain a competent course and safely journey with all the passengers, citizens comfortable enough to work on their own wireless devices without excessive turbulence or cabin packing in the poor, with goats and manure, no coffee, sugar, snacks, or nice hostesses. It does not mean that no first-class cabin can exist or that the economy class must get free Omaha steaks, truffles, and orange Julius's. It just means that all Americans are in the Dreamliner together, although they may defect to invest in China, India, or the Cayman Islands and deposit in Swiss banks, to be sure. And the entire experience should be functional for all and not just what some of the wealthy believe is okay for the passengers, and the aft should be packed them in like cordwood, tranquilized, and sprayed with sanitizer. If there is an art of politics that advances social interest toward fulfillment of select basic functions of national economic efficiency, ecospherically acceptable, it will work through design rather than accident. If evolution becomes a political excuse for any sort of corruption and abnegation of competent predication of language, material, and spiritual goals through the bandwidth and broadcast media, it is the rich that will concentrate wealth as the main prevailing survivors through all the smoke, mirrors, and deceit. An art of politics that rectifies national purpose toward the realistic social and economic principles of the founders within the contemporary totalized economic environment that is restorative of privacy and freedom necessarily socially for economic and spiritual prosperity must also lead the people toward conservation and recovery of the natural environment that under God is the ecosphere in which life on earth exists for at least in health, if not long-range sustainability. This is no time for corporate feudalism, anesthetic industrial, or bureaucratic existentialist consumerism. And so then I'll move on to humorous remedy for the voter ID.